Aliens Dark Descent is one of the latest and greatest RTS games, and it beautifully mixes action and horror, but in a truly unique and compelling way. But the game also has some serious flaws like balance and technical issues, but the game still scores very high review rates on Steam, so is the game worth it, or is it just being overhyped? Let's find out. Now, Aliens Dark Descent is set within the thrilling and intense universe of the Aliens franchise, and you'll be commanding your units in a desolate void of space, managing resources, and developing a strategy to combat the relentless xenomorph infestation that's been unleashed upon your vessel. And the game does a great job of blending RTS mechanics with survival horror elements. You're not just managing resources and ordering units, you're also anticipating the dread of the next xenomorph attack and devising strategies on the fly to keep your crew alive. And one of the thrilling elements of the game is a dynamic enemy AI. At its core, Aliens Dark Descent is a real-time strategy game with survival horror twist, where the main objective is to survive and conquer. And the game caters primarily to people who love strategy and fans of Aliens franchise. And it's definitely a game where thinking a strategy is way more important than just going guns blazing. And as the commander, you have a range of tools and crafting options available, where you start with basic supplies like medkits and ammunition, but as you progress you get access to more advanced and powerful weapons, defensive structures, and even new types of units. And the game heavily emphasizes strategic planning and resource management, and the game's progression system is also tied to these mechanics. In the early game, you're figuring out how to survive the initial xenomorph onslaught, securing your first safe zone, and then by the end game you are coordinating attacks on the xenomorph hives, defending multiple areas simultaneously, and making tough decisions on how to distribute your resources. Now, the storyline does take a bit of a backseat to the gameplay, but it is still an integral part of the experience, and it unfolds gradually as you progress, offering you a deeper understanding of the xenomorph infestation, and the game is a master of tense balance. It is challenging, but in a way that feels satisfying rather than punishing. While it doesn't exactly hold your hand, it guides you through the mechanics and progression intuitively, using the early levels to teach you the ropes before ramping up the difficulty. There's also an innate sense of the dread that comes with uncertainty of what lies behind the next door, or down the dimly lit corridor. You can open a door, hoping for a cache of ammunition, only to be met by an army of xenomorph, forcing you to adapt on the fly. There's also an importance of trial and error come in, where each playthrough is an opportunity to learn from previous mistakes, to strategize better, and to optimize your resource allocation. It's not just a game about survival, but a game of learning and evolving. Now, this might make it sound like the game is geared more towards the hardcore player, and while it's true that RTS veterans will enjoy the game a lot, the game is also pretty accessible to casual players. And the difficulty curve is well balanced, although the learning curve is quite steep. Now, as you start your journey in Aliens Dark Descent, the early game immediately sets the tone and builds the atmosphere, immersing you in the dire circumstances of your mission, where the game subtly teaches you the mechanics, offering you a sense of accomplishment as you fend off the initial xenomorph. And the combat system also shines from the get-go. Each marine has their own unique weapon, from pulse rifles to flamethrowers, each with their own advantages and drawbacks, and you need to adapt your strategy based on your marine's positions and weapon types, which is one of the core gameplay mechanics. And I will say that graphically the game looks really good. It provides a highly detailed and atmospheric representation of the iconic franchise, and the top-down perspective really reveals the intricate map designs. And that's the same with the sound design. It is truly a high point. It has really good atmospheric music and sound effects to ramp up the tension, and all this helps a lot with the immersion. Whether you're stealthily navigating dark corridors or engaging in frantic firefights with a xenomorph swarm, you're bound to be on the edge of your seat. So in terms of the pros and cons of the game, there are quite a few in both the categories. The first pro is the atmosphere, and the game absolutely nails the eerie, tension-filled atmosphere of the Alien franchise, really using impressive and immersive graphics and sound design to create an overall really immersive experience. And next pro is a deep tactical gameplay, and does a really good job of blending the real-time strategy with the horror and suspension of the Alien franchise. And the game rewards tactical thinking, forcing you to plan your action carefully and respond quickly to the ever-changing situations. And next pro is the progression system. It's got a really nice RPG-like progression system that provides a satisfying sense of growth and achievement as you upgrade your squad a lot more advanced gear and abilities. Unfortunately, the game also has quite a few cons. The first con is a steep learning curve. If you're not used to RTS games, this game will be quite hard. The mechanics are quite difficult to understand at first. And next thing is probably the biggest issue is technical issues. You will encounter a lot of bugs, and here I don't mean the xenomorphs, I mean actual gameplay bugs. Sometimes your missions will just completely freeze and you have to restart the entire thing, or minor things as just not being able to loot boxes. A lot of things are kind of a coin toss if they actually work or not, which can be really frustrating. There's also just a lot of things that just kind of ruin your immersion, like music loops getting stuck, or just overall broken cutscenes, or AI that completely freezes. And next con is definitely the voiceovers for me. Every time you move your squad or you click on a marine, there's always a voice line. So if you're someone who likes to click a lot, you will constantly be bombarded in your ear holes. If you find this helpful, a like on the video helps a ton with the YouTube algorithm, and I'd really appreciate the support. Now let's grade the game, shall we? So the first thing grading on is the gameplay, and I really want to grade it high here, but just the amount of game breaking bugs really annoy me. So in terms of the overall gameplay, I'll probably give it an 8 or a 9, but the amount of game breaking bugs bring this down to a 6. Next thing grading on is the graphics and immersion, and it does pretty well here. There are a few issues like looping music or the voiceovers that really annoy me, but overall the graphics and immersion are really good, so So here I give an 8 out of 10. And the final thing we're grading on is replayability and progression. Now the progression system is actually quite engaging and satisfying, and if you enjoy this game, you could definitely get at least 50 hours of playtime in it. So here I give it a 7 out of 10. So the overall grade is a 7 out of 10. And it's such a shame because the gameplay is really solid, but it just feels a bit rushed. If they spend a few more weeks or a month more just getting down into the gritty parts of it, and it's really focused on polishing and bug removing, this game could easily be one of the best RTS games ever made. But as I'm playing this, I'm just constantly being annoyed by the voiceovers and the amount of bugs I encounter every 5 minutes. It's a real shame because the gameplay and graphics are really good. So is the game worth it? It depends honestly. If you're a really big fan of Alien franchise or RTS games, you will probably think it's worth enough just for the gameplay. Just prepare yourself because you will encounter bugs and you will have to restart a few times when the game basically breaks down. And I would say with the current retail price of 40 bucks, it's probably a bit on the high end because it's riddled with issues. But if you can get it for 20 bucks or less, it is definitely worth it for the gameplay. But what do you think? Do you think it's worth it? Leave a comment down below and let us know. And lastly, as a small channel, please consider hitting the like button as it really helps out with the YouTube algorithm. So thank you so much for doing that. Also, if you're looking for more game reviews, make sure to check out the rest of the channel. And I think you also enjoyed one of the videos on the screen now, so make sure to check those out and I'll see you there.